Are you ready? Okay, we're here with Dan Johnson, the executive director of We Do Better, and he's agreed to do an interview on whether Hillary should be prosecuted. And his first take off camera was that it's academic because we can't. I mentioned that the statute of limitations hasn't expired. So your second point was?
The second point was, I'm not really sure that in a democracy like ours, or a representative republic, that we should set the precedent where the winner of a presidential election prosecutes the loser of a presidential election. Because, to be fair, the vast majority of people who have become president or run for office have in some way, it could be strongly argued, violated the law. And
okay, well, let me ask you a question. So you're comfortable with the loser of the election organizing a prosecution of the winner? That's fine. Which is what happened.
in this case, it would be the winner prosecuting the loser, but I don't. Yes, with Mueller and things like that.
Yeah, the loser prosecuting the winner. Let me ask you a few specific questions.
Yes.
Did Hillary Clinton destroy 30,000 emails that had been subpoenaed to her for an investigation of her activities? Is that a fact?
I think that's a question for the courts to decide. I know it's been debated in the public, and the evidence seems to point to that, but the courts, neither a jury nor the courts have ever come out and said, yes, she did that.
Right, but it's a public record that she doesn't deny that she deleted them, and so there isn't any dispute about that. But okay, so that constitutes obstruction of justice, right?
Correct. Yes.
And so if you believe in the equal application of the law, you would prosecute her for obstruction of justice. Not only did she delete those emails, but she also got all the cell phones, we saw them, banged with a hammer and destroyed, right? So she prevented the people investigating her activities to get the evidence to prosecute. So that would be also obstruction of justice.
Absolutely.
So that would be one crime that would be easy to prove. What about the idea that she had classified material on a private server, and that represents gross negligence, and they agreed that happened, but they just called it very careless to avoid prosecution. So that would also be a crime, wouldn't it?
It absolutely would be a crime. And
okay, well, let me ask you some more. Did Hillary Clinton and the DNC, did they hire Fusion GPS to get dirt on Trump?
I think it's been pretty strongly proven at this point that Christopher Steele was hired to do the dossier by Fusion GPS, and to that point.
And Fusion GPS was paid by the DNC and Hillary Clinton.
And importantly, that same DNC that paid for that was in debt to the Hillary Clinton campaign. So if you talked to, was it Donna Brazile, who used to be the head of the DNC, she talked about how the DNC owed the Clinton campaign money. So it wasn't just the Clinton campaign that paid for the dossier. They were able to use the DNC and essentially own the Democratic Party, so that supporters of someone like Bernie Sanders really didn't have a chance because there was no monetary benefit for the DNC to support him.
Right. And Christopher Steele is the guy who used Russian sources to create that dossier that you just mentioned that had salacious and unverified material. Is that correct?
It seems to be correct based on what's been reported so far. Yeah.
So isn't then Hillary the one that colluded with the Russians to affect the election?
I think it's fair to say that the campaign had some collusion with the Russians, but I also think the most important question is does the United States not collude with other countries to change their elections?
Absolutely, and we interfere with other countries, and it's immoral and wrong to do that. Not only like we did with Israel, like the Obama administration interfered with the Israeli election and tried to affect it, but sometimes worse. And we just send in our army and we change the
When we don't like the results, right?
we change the situation. Yeah, so absolutely, it's not moral or correct. But I was just pointing out that if anybody did the collusion, it was Hillary and the DNC with the Russians. So far, we don't have any evidence that Trump colluded with the Russians. But here's the point that I think is most important. This dossier that Christopher Steele was able to compile based on Russian sources that Comey said was salacious and unverified. So there's already they accept that it was salacious and unverified. This dossier was used